Thank you for joining today's panel discussion on how to unlock the power of real-time read-write data access and expedite your mainframe modernization projects. My name is Jeannie Glass, and I'm founder and CEO of VirtualZ Computing. I'm honored to moderate today's panel and would like to thank Micro Focus for the opportunity to join them as a sponsor at Universe this year. We have 3 industry experts and influencers with us today to share their expertise in mainframe modernization. With us is Steve Reed, Principal Program Manager of Azure Engineering with Microsoft, where he's held a variety of roles since 1999. Steve focuses on transforming mission-critical workloads to Azure. Graham Owen, who's been working in mainframe computing for over 40 years, is Product Manager of Mainframe Software Solutions with Micro Focus, where he ensures that customers achieve the same level of operational reliability and availability on their chosen platform as they do on the mainframe. And Vince Ray, our co-founder and CTO at VirtualZ Computing. Vince is a patented mainframe software innovator. He's the author of CA Top Secret. And throughout his 30-plus-year career at Computer Associates, his work led to many of the high-performing products and services that are now held by Broadcom. Thank you so much for joining us today, everybody. We're going to learn how to reduce costs and expedite mainframe modernization projects with Lozen by VirtualZ in partnership with Micro Focus and Microsoft. With Lozen, you can eliminate ETL and other legacy lift and shift data transfer and data replication methods and leave your data securely on the mainframe, maintaining a single source of truth with real-time read-write access to data on the mainframe from applications running in the cloud and on distributed platforms. So to get started, Steve, can you tell us why did Microsoft partner with VirtualZ and Micro Focus to bring Lozen to market for your Azure customers?
Sure, great question. Thank you, Jeannie. At Microsoft, we like to take a data-driven approach to partner solutions, and really what that means is we want to see solutions that the customer is asking for and actually needs and can better their business. VirtualZ is a really good example of that. Although it kind of varies from customer to customer, we usually see about an 8 to 10x decrease in the infrastructure costs for a mainframe workload when we migrate that to Azure. So in other words, Azure is about 8 to 10x less. That's a significant ROI when you think about it, and when you couple that with the benefits of a cloud platform like Azure, you can see why there's a lot of interest and incentive for integrating and migrating workloads to Azure. Lozen solves a lot of problems when you have a mainframe that needs to talk to the distributed platform and vice versa. And so that's why we're very excited about this new solution.
Great, thank you, Steve. We've enjoyed working with you as well. Vince, can you briefly describe how Lozen works and how it allows data to be integrated into workloads on both the mainframe and distributed platforms, as Steve mentioned?
Yeah, the central thing to keep in mind about Lozen is that our approach leaves the data where it is today. The data remains on the mainframe, and what that means is all of your mainframe applications continue to work with that data really unchanged. They're completely unaware that you might have other applications running in the Azure cloud or really anywhere that are processing that same data. And most of the benefits we talk about really derive from that. When there's only one copy of the data, everything just gets so much simpler operationally. You don't have copies of data floating around in the environment, and when they're updated, they have to be reconciled, and all sorts of complicated things need to happen. With Lozen, there's one source of the data. It's accessed in many places, and unique to Lozen, it's not just kind of what I'll call primitive access to the data, it's sophisticated access to the data. So if you need to search for subsets of records by keys or read files forwards and backwards and so forth. You can do all of that with Lozen. So there's no loss of functionality, no matter where the application is running. And you know, together that gives you the advantages that you talked about earlier.
Great, thank you, Vince. Graham, in your view, how can customers best exploit Lozen's real-time read-write access for cost savings?
Thanks, Jeannie. So we know from a number of mainframe and other IT surveys that the mainframe still holds most of that business critical data for customers that use them. And vSAN data still has an important role to play. We also know that the way this data is used by the business has changed significantly since the systems were designed. An example of this would obviously be analytics. Customers typically run this on other platforms. So they extract the data using programs on the mainframe and send it to the analytics systems to be loaded. Now, using Lozen, the data could be accessed and processed using Enterprise Server to remove the load from the mainframe, reducing MLC costs and lowering MIPS consumption. And because Enterprise Server has this high level of compatibility with the mainframe, this can be achieved in hours with a recompile of the mainframe COBOL or PL1 program and then reusing the JCL. Another obvious benefit of this approach is that the data can be refreshed more frequently to deliver more up-to-date information. Better analytics at a reduced cost is an option I think that most mainframe customers will welcome.
Great, thank you so much, Graham. Vince, anything you would add in addition to Steve and Graham's comments regarding how customers can achieve cost savings with Lozen?
Yeah, and I think this is a really important part of the Lozen story. You know, one thing I'll point out is the way we've architected Lozen, the mainframe components are able to exploit IBM's specialty engines. So most of the Lozen software executes on a zip engine, and that means it helps to drive your MLC costs down and so forth. So that's a really important thing as well. It's not like you're moving work off of your mainframe, but adding Lozen components. The Lozen components generally run in zip engines. The other thing that's also important is that without Lozen, a lot of customers do file transfer, ETL, any manner of things that consume lots and lots of resources. Some of the surveys we've seen talk about up to 20% of resources going to those kind of processes. With Lozen, again, because there's only one source of data that's shared in real time across the whole environment, all of that goes away. You don't really need to run that stuff anymore. So there's dramatic MIPS savings potential there as well. And of course, even beyond that, if you find that you don't need some of these tools and so forth, there may be vast savings by eliminating some of those software licenses and so forth. So from a cost point of view, Lozen has got some important advantages that we want to make sure our customers understand.
Great, thank you, Vince.
Yep.
Steve, one of the first questions that we get asked about Lozen is regarding latency. What do you suggest that Microsoft for customers who need maximum low latency bandwidth to Azure?
Great question. Yeah, so probably the single most important item that needs to be in place to minimize latency between your on-premises infrastructure and your Azure infrastructure is what's called an Azure Express route. And this is essentially a private connection into Azure that is provided by your telco. What Microsoft does is we provide a point of presence that the telco connects to, but once that is established, then you have a very fast network connection and probably most important, private network connection. So it addresses a lot of security concerns, and it also has predictable performance. So when you have those workloads where you're integrating back and forth between, one way or the other, talking to a database, you have predictable performance that you can actually, plan around. And it's very high throughput, 100 gigabits or more, and then 15 milliseconds to 80 milliseconds is what you can probably expect for the latency. There's some other things that you can do within Azure. Accelerated network is something that you should probably leverage for all of the machines that have to integrate with the mainframe. This is drastically improves the network performance. And then when when you really need to get to very, very low latencies, then there are things you can do. It's like move the mainframe actually into an Equinix data center, which is even closer to the Azure infrastructure, and that could reduce the latency even more.
Great, thank you, Steve. Another question we get asked quite often is about security. In your view, how would a mainframe site configure Azure to so that identities in the cloud are available to the mainframe?
Yes, and we get asked that a lot too. And Microsoft actually has a product that's been out since the early 90s. Used to be called SNA Gateway Server. Now it's called Host Integration Server. And we have something in there called Enterprise Single Sign-On. And essentially what that does is that allows you to take the RACF and top secret identities and propagate those to Active Directory, which is Kerberos based. And then on the Microsoft side, we have some technologies to essentially sync Active Directory, which is usually what you use for your on-premises estate, to the cloud, which is Azure Active Directory. So that's one way you can actually propagate those identities. There are some limitations with this approach in that it's kind of a one-way transaction, so to speak, or propagation. So if you have something happening over on the Active Directory side, there's no way to really sort of put that over into the RACF side. There are other solutions, and I know Micro Focus has a great solution that are more robust, but essentially that's how those identities are propagated over.
Okay, great, thank you. Vince, building on Steve's comments, anything you would add regarding latency and/or security specific to Lozen?
Yeah, well, security is near and dear to the minds of every mainframe customer I know. And one of the things that we've been very careful to do is make sure that Lozen operates within the existing security policies that you got defined. So no matter where your mainframe data is accessed, the actual security checking for who gets access to that data happens using your normal mainframe security product. So if whether you're an ACF2 customer, top secret customer, or an IBM RACF customer, all of those policies that you already have in place to protect your data continue to work even in Lozen, even if the client is, as Steve described, running in the Azure cloud. We have multiple options ranging from Kerberos to pass tickets to digital certificates and so forth that allow you to communicate identities to us. And once we have the identity of the client, we just do normal mainframe style security checking. So again, that's an important benefit of keeping the data on the mainframe. It also means that the management and security of the data is also kept on the mainframe. So yeah, really, really important. And I'm sure every mainframe customer will feel much more comfortable with that kind of approach.
Great, thank you. And Graham, as we prepare to close, customers are increasingly looking to the cloud. How does the out-of-box integration with Micro Focus Enterprise Server and Lozen help customers expedite their mainframe modernization projects?
Yeah, another great question. I think it helps to start by considering how customers are generally approaching the move to the cloud. According to a survey by Flexera, 92% of organizations have an established multi-cloud strategy, and 82% are using a hybrid approach with private and public cloud. I think this tells us that businesses prefer evolution to revolution. Yeah. So directly addressing the question, large mainframe customers who recognize the value of their existing mainframe applications, but who face competition from companies that already have flexible cloud-based applications, I think that the combination of Enterprise Server and Lozen offers them a powerful option when it comes to modernizing their existing application estate from the mainframe to the cloud. They will have the option to modernize through a planned approach, evolving and adopting, and then use the mainframe and Enterprise Server in combination. With this low risk approach, they can retain a single application code base and quickly achieve the flexibility and cost optimization they need.
Great, thank you so much. Steve, Graham, and Vince, thank you for sharing your expertise and insights with us today. It's been a pleasure working with all of you to prepare for this panel discussion. And we'd like to thank all of you who joined us for the conversation today. We hope you found the discussion lively and informative. If you'd like to learn more, please feel free to reach out to any of us on the email addresses that you see on the screen. And thank you again for joining us.